if something's been nagging you recently on the topic of joint pain, I just want to get a pulse for the room. Knees, shoulders, hips, we all have something. So today's training is going to kind of flip the script on what to do when you're feeling some nagging injury. Now, there's a difference between something nagging and something really acute that needs to be addressed by someone beyond my scope, but we'll kind of help you determine the difference there. So, okay, knees and low back, those are very common. Knees popping up a couple times. Left knee bothers me. Okay. Yeah, so sometimes it's training around it. The worst thing we can do, and we'll get into that, is not doing anything. And that's how these things linger for the rest of our lives. We got bursitis in the shoulder. Okay. So yeah, I think this training is going to be beneficial because we go through, yeah, the most common spots, low back, knees, shoulders, generally speaking. That's where most things come up. And so I'm basically summarizing. There was a couple trainings back in Vegas at that conference. Justin Farnsworth, he's like a sports medicine doctor, works with a lot of NHL players and stuff. And I forget the name of the other guy, but basically consolidated my notes into a training here for you guys. And a lot of it kind of echoes what Abby and myself have put into your plan already. I know I defer to Abby on a lot of this stuff because she was a physiotherapist in a past life, and now I kind of merged the two as a coach for us. So with that said, I'll share my screen. Type of one if you can see this. Well, it's really slow on my end, but okay, or thumbs up, that works too. All right, training around pain. So why hurting doesn't necessarily mean harming, and how to keep moving without making it worse, of course, and the hormonal factor we'll talk about. So this is my takeaways. So this is the big idea to take from this is pain doesn't always equal harm. Sometimes pain is a sign that we're actually, strengthening the joint. You all understand the muscle pain we get from a hard workout. Now, we don't want crippling amounts of that after every workout, but that's usually a sign that there's some adaptation happening, which is a good thing. Okay. So in his findings, Dr. Farnsworth, 70% of pro hockey players have hip labrum tears and don't miss games. Not to say we're pro athletes. Maybe their pain tolerance is higher. They get paid millions to do it, but in a lot of cases, that little bit of pain can be played through and not make it worse. Okay. Pretty much everybody on an MRI has some disc degeneration, but that doesn't mean it's something you can't work around or should. Okay. It's just like your skin. Our whole body tends to age, wears down a bit. And the worst thing we can do in those cases is not try to treat it with the proper plan. You've got a skincare routine, you need a body routine as well. And a big piece of this puzzle, like anything, like we talked about with Dr. Divi, is if you expect to recover, you probably will. If you don't, if you've kind of gotten married to your ailments, they'll continue because the mind is a powerful tool. I don't think they would ever go this far anymore, but the placebo research back in the day where they brought people in with knee injuries, they did a small incision, like put them under small incision and just stitched them back up. And it was like 80, 90% of people thought their knees were all better, cured. And they had done no work inside. Okay. So keep that in mind. So the difference between hurt and harm. So hurt is stuff that you can kind of work through. It's, you feel it a bit. Oh, first couple of reps and these squats don't feel nice until you get your joints warmed up. And okay, now I can work around this pretty good. Pretty common after like long periods of sitting or a hard lifting session. That's normal to have a bit of that. Harm now is like a sudden sharp pain, 8 out of 10 or above. Doesn't seem to get better with rest. Wakes you up at night. Obviously, numbness, tingling, weakness. That's things to look out for. Or bowel or bladder changes, which can indicate some serious low back injury. So two different things there. For the most part, we can address the hurt. Harm, there's a specialist for that. See your doctor. Message me, sir. I can try to make a referral, but in a lot of cases, those things are, the difference, and you should. So it goes beyond the joint, though. If you're under a lot of stress, that can kind of manifest itself in pain in different areas. And Divi does a really good job of like getting to the root of that, right? It's pretty woo-woo, right? But there's some real truth to that. Not moving enough. I just had this talk with my father-in-law who's getting cortisone shots, but I'm like, oh, well, what are you doing? And you're not training. Do something for that knee. It's going to help with recovery. Poor sleep manifests in all these things, even just job satisfaction, relationship dissatisfaction. The belief talk, I already had here with, oh, my back is broken or this knee is never going to be in good shape. That becomes self-fulfilling. And if you're not using it, you're losing it. Weak tissues hurt more. Makes sense so far? We'll get to the hormones too. Type a yes if you're still with me. All right, good. There you go. So how does this factor in? Certainly not my domain. We could make a referral if you're, needing help in this area, but menopause, 70% of women have some sort of muscle or skeletal symptoms. 25% are completely disabled by them. We don't want you in that category. Okay, so there's lots you can do to counteract that. But when estrogen drops, like there's lots of people in the bodybuilding space, when they take aromatase inhibitors with their testosterone to lower estrogen, they lower it too low, and then they're in crippling pain in their elbows and knees. So it's that delicate balance of hormones, and in menopause, that delicate balance gets skewed. That's what leads to frozen shoulder and joint pain and inflammation. So the answer might be HRT, potentially, right? Again, I can't make that determination for you. The same applies to men to a lesser extent, because testosterone doesn't drop as quickly in this case, but after 60 years, you're losing quite a bit and can be clinically low. At least the research shows 1 in 3. So that can manifest itself in weaker muscles, which obviously impacts our joint strength. Okay. So what to do about it? Again, we'll preach the basics because you're drinking enough water, you're ruling out any dehydration that might be under the surface causing some of these issues. Protein, which helps with muscle, but also bone density, alongside our heavy lifting, of course. Not Pilates, although that's cool. You can do that. But slang and iron is our best defense against these age-related declines and joint pain. Supplements, hard one to kind of determine because you don't want to like throw 6 supplements in the mix and then don't know what's doing what. Some people swear by collagen for tendon health, for joint health. I'm a bit on the fence with that one. I know there's enough evidence out there to suggest it might be worth a shot, but I think the staples are, again, the creatine to support muscle and bone growth, omega-3s for lubricating the joints, and then vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin K, usually a combination of vitamin D and K2 so that you're regulating calcium levels. It's not getting unregulated. So that's something to keep in mind. You can overdo the vitamin D. All right. And then I personally love advanced curcumin. I always had knee pain from hockey. Introducing that, placebo or not, there is some real research behind that. It reduces at least the pain. I don't think it's improving like the actual health of the joint. It's reducing some of the inflammation in the joint. And that can help kind of push through workouts. Okay. And then again, if the basics don't work, hormonal therapy could be a discussion. Someone who's literate in menopause, a lot of these clinics are waitlisted. It's hard to get in. We do have like a direct referral to someone. I think it's Westwood, actually. Yeah. They've got a whole side program now specifically for HRT, TRT. So I've been kind of trying to refer people there if it makes sense to do so. So in terms of training, like modify, don't eliminate. So what does the position of bias mean? Well, where do you feel the least pain? Maybe you have to lean back more on your squat, sit onto a bench versus a forward lean. Or some people actually feel better. Maybe they get tight hips if they're too far back, so they lean forward. Again, it's kind of trial and error. And we want to get you to a position where you feel the least pain and you can complete your sets, ultimately. Now, the heavier the load, technically speaking, the more potential for joint pain. So kind of scaling that back, maybe doing higher reps and still getting to a point of near failure, but just at a higher rep range. Again, that will work. The doctor I saw speak was really big on isometrics in these cases. So I can send the Spanish squat video, but it's basically just a band wrapped around your knees. So you might be leaning on a bar or a door hinge or something, and you're squatting back with that band tension, kind of alleviating some of the pain in the knee. And if it's a lower back thing, maybe a plank hold can kind of calm the tissue versus repetitions where you're crunching your way up and feeling pain. And then if you have access to machines, it's a little bit more controlled. You don't have to rely on balance or lower back. You can just sit in it and still target the muscle you're trying to work. And then we talked about angles at length in the past. And anyone that's been to one of those little small group workouts, we do a lot of that to look at where your foot width should be or the grip, right? If you got real shoulder issues, a neutral grip might feel a lot better than palms out. Kind of finding those sweet spots where you can still train without pain or with minimal pain. Any questions so far? Not seeing the chat. Okay. So this one gets a little technical. I'm not going to go too in depth here. Just trust that your coach can give you the answers here. Abby will certainly help. If you've got some issues, we obviously can adjust the plan, the program, or refer you to someone who can work directly on that, whether it's a physiotherapist or otherwise. So in terms of knee, maybe it's in the ankle, maybe it's in the hip, maybe it's in the glutes. Tightness is somewhere else, but you only feel the pain in the knee. So that's something that we need to kind of figure out. Getting more mobility back in the hamstring might help, that kind of stuff. And a lot of this we've already talked about. The shoulder, try both vertical and horizontal planes, pushing versus up, slight more of an incline on your bench. You might feel better than two upright. It's a lot of testing, trial and error, seeing what feels best. And the only mention here is on the lower back. Sometimes holds can help. So a good morning. I don't know. Not everyone has, very rarely does anyone have this at home, but like a good morning at the gym where I might have to find a video for that because it's hard to explain. So I'll find that after and send it. But sometimes that can strengthen it without doing multiple repetitions that aggravates it. Okay. I just threw this in here as a way to test your mobility. And again, if you're taller or wider hipped, kind of unfairly penalizes you. So don't read too much into this. But basically, from a standing position, you lower to a cross-legged position on the floor and then try to stand back up. You're supposed to subtract some points for every hand that touches the floor or every knee touches. Don't read too much into this. I think it's more of a causation here of that 6 times higher cardiovascular mortality. I don't know where they came up with that, but it was almost 5,000 people that did the study. So something to keep in mind. We definitely want, and the good news is range of motion doesn't necessarily get limited by age as long as we continue to work on it. Power, speed, strength, those tend to decline despite our best efforts. Range of motion, mobility, not so much. Okay. This one came up as well. The idea that you don't necessarily have to have long workouts to still get a lot of benefit for cardiovascular health. So even 4.5 minutes, don't expect this to contribute to fat loss, but just sprinting up the stairs, hauling groceries, the ones that are one trip where you got multiple bags. Wall sit, I meant to write here, not a walk sit between meetings. And then literally just squats. Well, the kettle boils or the microwave is going or the shower is heating up. Just try to get in the idea that you need to be doing stuff throughout the day because we sit a lot. And this counteracts that to some degree. Okay. All right. So last but not least, my MRI showed a disc bulge. I'm broken. I can't do anything with it. Pretty much everybody has some disc degeneration as we age. They age like skin. You get some wrinkles, inevitable. Doesn't mean you shy away from doing things that are going to help you in the long run. This myth that yoga, Pilates is safe, but lifting is dangerous. You actually look at the injury rates, very comparable. Even in powerlifting, that's like heavy lifts. I think the gym is like the safest place because you're bracing, you're in a controlled environment, whereas rec sports, you get hit the wrong way, you're not ready for it, you tweak something. I certainly can speak to that experience. The gym has never given me any issues. And if it hurts, rest it, not so much. Bed rest makes things far worse. We need load to heal, blood flow to the area, so modify Don't stop. Okay. So last but not least, keep training. Again, if something hurts, try to modify the angle, positioning, the load, or refer to us before you Google or panic. AI will tell you you've got some disease. We'll try to help you modify as well. And again, refer out. We're happy to do that if it's beyond our scope. Sharp, sudden pain that won't settle. Hopefully you guys know how to get that looked at. Okay. That is good. Under 20 minutes as promised. Let's open the floor. Let me show the Spanish squat really quick.
And going down, squeezing.
Yeah, so you need a thick band for this. Again, you can do it without the band and just hold on to something very secure, or do what she's doing, which is just kind of using that as a guide.
Right torso, you oftentimes
I find you could just squat to a bench. Same idea. At least you have something to sit on at the end, so that you can come back up. Alrighty. I believe that covers it. Any questions? We got Diane waving. Let's hear it.
The one you said about if it hurts, like no bed rest, but I don't understand what I would think bed rest if it was a back ache or something. You'd want to lay down or something. No?
No, no, not for long anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
best medicine is often walking,
Oh,
moving,
okay.
getting blood flow to the area. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. As long as it's not like crippling sharp pain, that requires surgery, that's a different story. Right? And I try to differentiate between hurt and harm off the
Okay.
top.
Okay.
Abby, you're kind of the pro here. So anything to add to what, I largely just took this from notes from who I saw speak, and obviously over the years and kind of without a medical background, you kind of figure out what works and what doesn't based off this stuff. But anything that jumps out that you find people talk about a lot that is maybe wrong or otherwise.
I mean, yeah, the presentation was great. Everything, you know, I think that people think an injury is like a death sentence sometimes, and if somebody gets injured or something hurts, then we stop everything, and that literally is the worst thing you can do. And there's always something that we can do to work around whatever it is. I mean, you're looking at a power lifter who's gotten beat up. I've got, I've had a torn bicep tendon for 15 years. I have low back. I have it all, trust me. And things could be so much worse if I wasn't strength training and doing the things that I do. And there are some things that I have to do a little differently because of specifics and issues. And in the therapy world, it was really pulling teeth with a lot of people and rehabbing injuries and getting them to understand that, yeah, I mean, sometimes it is no pain, no gain. And, um, you know, Diane, you mentioned if like a low back or a knee or a hip, if we think about something that rusts, like gets rusty, when it's not utilized or it's not moving, that's what happens to our joints and things when we don't do anything about it. You can be much worse off not getting the lubrication in those joints, not moving around. And by no means, like, I mean, if you have a broken leg or I mean, let's be smart about this. Like, obviously there are instances where that's, it's not black and white. There's always gray. Um, but don't let a lower injury affect your upper body now, and it, or vice versa, or just, yeah, let us know. And there's so much we can do, that we do get this mindset of falling victim to a lot of these things. That's what I noticed the most, honestly, is people just give in to these diagnoses and things that, well, I had an MRI and I have disc issues and I have knee issues and I have back issues and I have shoulder issues, and so do all of us. I promise you that. But it's not a sentence to say I can't do anything anymore and I'm just going to rest. So Always
Exactly.
something to do.
Hmm. Yeah, and I don't know the exact study, but they showed even with like a full or full limb cast on, say, the right arm, if you train the left arm, you prevent some of the atrophy in that recovering arm, which seems crazy, but I guess the brain is kind of working bilaterally like that, right? I don't know if you saw that research, Abby, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a weird, interesting phenomenon that we can't entirely entirely explain, but I guess I have seen that research of doing the opposite side with an injured right arm, still doing the one side. And I broke my wrist about 5 or 6 years ago, and you better believe I was doing everything I could with the other side. And even like, so I always think when these things come about, okay, this happened, now what can I do? Not, oh, this happened, poor me, I can't do anything. Those, it's really interesting. Of course, like everyone's, you got to work on your mindset too. And um, I I grew up with I have a brother that's handicapped, so that has proven all odds of doing, so I guess when I see someone that like, hurt their wrist or something and isn't doing anything, it's just the sympathy level kind of like, you can figure it out. We can do something. So, but I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, there is some fascinating research on it. It is very interesting still doing the opposite side when one side is injured, like can, yeah, what do they call it? Like, not ESP, but can't think of the
Yeah,
word.
I know what you're getting at. Yeah, it's the whole takes us back to that whole expression that if one tire is slashed, don't willingly slash
Yes,
the other three tires. You can still get to your
exactly.
destination. Yeah, just a little
Yep.
slower. And it might be an opportunity to work on a weak spot, do more volume for something that, is still able-bodied, well, that
Right.
whatever the joint or muscle recovers. But right now I have like a pretty bad adductor strain and hockey's off the table. Sadly, I tried to
Yep.
sleep the other night and it was bad, but I can still modify and still train the quads in a seated position. I just can't load heavy on their squats. And that's what the physio told me too, is just to strengthen up the adductors, not stop doing anything or doing everything, right? Just be smart about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And try to work still in those patterns. I once I was seeing a sports chiropractor for a long time, and that works heavily with more higher level athletes and pro athletes. And the goal is to never stop doing. It's to find what works and continue to do the same things in potentially a different manner or a different instead of a barbell on your back, let's do a kettlebell, like a goblet squat. Let's lift the heels. Let's still work in these patterns the best way that we can, and try to get you and work in ranges that still work. So we keep the body in that in those patterns, and kind of that muscle memory, and just until X gets stronger and better to adapt, with and improve. So
Yeah, and a big takeaway from today was, foot positioning, grip, all these things can kind of be angled and modified where you feel the best, and try to, self-regulate that, right? If you're really bothered in your wrist by an open palm curl, just, slightly angle it and see if that feels better, or go full neutral grip or hammer grip, or vice
mhm.
versa if that's where you feel the pain. So, yeah, I think that was kind of the big message today is modify, don't stop entirely. We have to scale back the volume or the load, then sure, we can do that. But it's never a good idea to just try to rest and ice and recover. That whole concept is pretty flawed. Right? Oh, just rest, ice, and heat, and you're good to go. It seems like it takes forever. You need some load and some blood flow to the area. Okay. Any last comments on this? No, for those on the Divi call, we have to jump to that in 3 minutes. But if there's any final concerns, comments on this, Irene, go ahead.
I found that with my hip problems, when I went back, I had stopped taking the glucosamine with chondroitin. And when I went back to it, it made a huge difference. And part of it is I had a hysterectomy when I was in my late 20s. So I'm sure that I really did need to modify the stuff that I was doing with my hips and making sure that I had enough of that in my system. Works.
Totally. Yeah, if
Yeah.
it works, keep doing it, right? That's the last thing you want to do is stop a treatment plan that's
Yeah.
working. There's a lot of different supplements that try and some don't do anything for anyone. I've even heard that
Yeah.
glucosamine didn't do anything for some, but if it works for you, awesome, right? Just double down.
Yeah. And with all of the moving that I've been doing, so many boxes up and down, up and down, up and
Mm,
down. Yeah, my glutes ache at the end of the day, but that goes away by the morning. I'm fine.
exactly, yeah. And that's why you're doing all this stuff. So you can lay
Yes.
log boxes at your age. I love it. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So again, just lean in on the coaches. If you have any concerns about something or a movement, that's what we can adjust. Even if it's not changing the movement entirely, it's maybe how you're performing it. And don't be afraid to send those videos if you need some guidance or come to one of our small groups. See a few that were at some of them recently, and those are sometimes helpful. All right. Okay. We'll end it here then. Have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, Mitch.
Cheers.